Okay, this is Professor Singhal again. This time I have the last video for Java file processing, video 505. In this case we are going to read multiple records from an input file, process them and print the results, more importantly to an output file but also to console. The video 4 is extremely important to understand. This video you will see that I can take the code from video 4 and just in like maybe 5 minutes I can convert that to read multiple records. Okay, so first let me show you the file with multiple records. So file with multiple records will look something like this. Each line has the student's first name, space, last name, then space separated scores they might have, and last value is the sentinel value, SENTINEL value, which is the impossible value for the score. Some students may not have taken any test at all, so all they have is a sentinel value. I only have 4 pieces of data in this file, 4 records, but I can have 100, 1,000, 10,000, wouldn't really matter. Once I have perfected the program, they will work exactly the same way. And once the processed file has been done, then we had like one student had this kind of output. Their name, first name and last name were printed, their scores were printed, how many tests they took printed, some of their tests were printed, average, rounded down average, in this case rounded down, and their grade is printed. So when we process multiple records, we'll have this piece of information for every student in the file. Okay, now let's go back and review portions of the program we did in video 4, because really it is just a matter of converting that program to process multiple records. So this was our program written in a previous video, video number 4. Let me just walk through all portions of it. So from line 8 up to line 26, I complete all the logistics of getting the input file name, getting the output file name, binding them to their respective file and scanner or print stream objects. So crux of the whole thing is I'll get a variable or an object called fread, which is bonded to the input file and can be used to read the input file, and then I have this print stream object ps, which is bonded to an output file and can be used to write to an output file. Okay, and then I declare a bunch of variables, first and last name, to read first and last name of the student, concatenate that into a full name, and that is done over here. Reading, first name is read on this line, last name is read on this line, and we combine them together into a full name. I read the first score, which could be either this or could be a sentinel value. If score is greater than 0 or equal to 0, then we have something to process, obviously. So all these lines are for that up to here. Otherwise, if a student has only a sentinel record, then I give them the message that you have no test scores in the file and we don't process anything. So the question is, okay, when a student has a positive score, then we enter this if structure here. We define a couple of variables, sum to hold the sum of their scores, count to count how many scores they had. We print their full name, and while the score is greater than 0, we use the sentinel control loop to sum up all their scores, like in this case sum of all these, and this loop, as described in video 4, will continue on, sum up their scores, count how many there are until it reaches this -1. Then it exits. Once it exits, I find the average for this student, which is sum divided by count. Of course, I convert that into double type. I find a rounded average, which rounds off the fractional part, converts that into a whole number. Criteria has been described earlier. Then by now I have all their scores printed. I have sum of all the scores. I know how many tests they took. I have the average and the rounded average, so I print all that information. I print how many tests they took. I print sum of all their tests. I print their real average, and I print their rounded average. And based on rounded average, I find their semester grade. I define a variable called grade, and I use this if and else structure all the way up to here to populate the grade variable, and finally I print their grade. So let's look at the file structure again. Many records. So we already have a program to process one record. How can I process all these in one program? Well, that's actually pretty easy. I use an outer loop to make sure that reading of the file starts here and ends here when the last record has ended. So when this piece of data here is read, Java is reading something called end of file character. Every file has a character at the end of the file which is called end of file character. At that time, a end of file character loop, end of file loop will exit. So basically we put our program starting from here all the way up to here into an outer loop which will govern reading of the file from first byte all the way to the end. And that's actually very easily done. I right click and I have something called surround with and a while loop. Okay? Really, that's all you need to do. You don't need to do anything. And here I just say while f read dot has next. So we need to understand why it works. Okay? Our file is bonded to this file here. When it comes here, has next returns true because hey, this is a string that is available, so it will return true. Okay? So in that case, it's going to enter this whole part and up to, so if I actually go down, it's pairing up with this brace here, so end of outer while loop. So when has next is true, then all this will be done for the first record. Okay? Once sentinel value is read for the first record, I will reach somewhere at the end of the here, and then since for the next record at the beginning of the loop it's going to read this one, and then has next here will be true for that record also. Okay, so then it's going to process the second record, and then it will come back all the way to the top, and then has next will be true because it's reading this part here, and it's processed that record, and it's going to go all the way up to the end, and it will process this record, then come back to the top of the loop, outer loop, and has next will be true again because it's reading this token here, and then this record will be processed up to here. Over here there is an end of file character which you cannot see here. You can see it in Microsoft Word in a certain way, but not here. When this record finishes processing, we come back to the top of the loop, and this time the end of file character is red. Has next for that is false. It returns false for that, and then I exit my outer loop, and then I just go and do this. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, so this has to work. And as usual, I got my many records file and output where I want copied here. So I'm just going to run this program again. So let's run it, and you'll see that it will now process multiple records. So I get the file that has multiple records. Now it's asking me the output file name, and where I want the output file name, out manyrecords.txt. And there we go. It printed all of them here, but really it's better seen from this file, out manyrecords.txt. And you are already aware that when we processed only Toots Suite, we saw this output, but now it's processing willy-nilly Philosophy, who had no test scores, and Jill Quirk. So willy-nilly had 4 tests, so 4 tests. Sum of her scores is 280, real average 70.0, rounded average is 70, her grade is C. Philosophy results you saw in earlier video. Jill Quirk has 3 tests, sum is 240, real average is 80.0, rounded average is 80, grade is B. Okay? So once you have understood program to process one record, program to process multiple records is actually extremely easy. All I did here is took the code, a portion of the code, this portion which was there already perfected for processing one record, put that inside, surround that by this loop, while fread.hasNext. HasNext returns, continues to return true when it reaches one record, continues to return true as long as there is a next record. And when all the records are finished, it reads end of the file character and returns false, in which case I exit out here and then basically go here. Okay? So please understand video 4, which I've already done in the class and given you a listing of that extremely well, and then you should not have any problem in processing the multiple records, because all I have to do is put that same code inside a end of file control loop. End of file control loop contains fread.hasNext. HasNext returns true as long as there is a next token or next record to be read. In this case, when it reads end of the file character, it exits. Alright, this is a short video because really we have done all the groundwork. There was not too much more to say here. It might look a little magical at this point, but once you type the program, you are required to type all the programs I've done in this video yourself. I have already given you printed copies of all these programs, so you already have the printed copy. I can upload these also, or print copies for you of these 5 as well if you want. This one, video 5 program, I have not done yet on the date 10/22/2011, but it will be done in this coming week. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.